All right, we are reviewing for the chapter 14 quiz. All right. This quiz should be pretty easy for most people. All right. You should probably have about half the period to work on the review, and you should probably be able to get it done, including doing the review. So looking at chapter 14, again, your quiz is tomorrow. We're skipping that question. We're going to question number 2. All right. Go ahead and try this one, please. Identify each property that's shown. All right, go ahead and try number 2, please. So remember my thoughts on Friday for remembering what the properties are. Remember that commutative switches the order, associative switches the grouping. All right, commutative switches the order, associative switches the grouping. In letter A, we are actually doing the distributive property. We're taking the number outside the parentheses, multiplying it by both of the things inside. So this is the distributive property. In question number 2, the parentheses are around the 7 and the 8, and then the parentheses are around the 8 and the 9. Notice that it goes 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9. So the order is staying the same. We're switching what's inside the group. So this is the associative property. You do have to identify whether it's of addition or of multiplication. This one has multiplying in it. So this is of multiplication. In letter C, we have 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, but this one has parentheses around the 7 and the 8. This one has parentheses around the 8 and the 9. So this is the associative property of multiplication, or sorry, of addition rather, sorry, of addition, because we are adding in the parentheses. In letter D, 7 times 8 equals 8 times 7. So anytime that we switch the order, this is the commutative property. And because we are multiplying, it is of multiplication. And in letter E, 7 plus 8 equals 8 plus 7. Again, we are switching the order. So this is the commutative property of addition. In Schoology, for your review and for your quiz, these will be already there for you. You have to drag and drop the correct property name to the correct one. In the next question, take a look at number 3. In number 3, determine each value. What is the additive inverse of -9? And what is the multiplicative inverse of 1/3? Go ahead and try question number 3, please. Additive inverse of -9, multiplicative inverse of 1/3. Remember that inverse is like reverse, which is like the opposite. So we want the opposite of -9. The opposite of -9 is +9. So that is the additive inverse of -9. The opposite of 1/3 is 3/1, or just 3. All right. So we're flipping it. We're doing the reciprocal of 1/3, which is 3/1. In question number 4, what number is each identity? What is the additive identity? And what is the multiplicative identity? Remember, your identity is yourself. So what can you add by to get yourself? what can you multiply by to get yourself? Go ahead and try number 4, please. What is the additive identity? What is the multiplicative identity? Remember, your identity is yourself. So what can we add by to get yourself? What can you multiply by to get yourself? You could add a number by 0 and it won't change. So 0 is the additive identity. 4 plus 0, you still get 4. Multiplicative identity, what can we multiply to get yourself? It's 1. 7 times 1 is 7. Multiply by 1 to get yourself. Question number 5 starts the multiple choice on your quiz tomorrow. Which one of these shows the associative property of multiplication? So remember that associative property switches what's inside the group. So what's inside the parentheses, and make sure that you realize that we are multiplying. So anything in these that would have adding signs would automatically disappear because this says of multiplication. Choice A is switching the order. Choice D is switching the group. Notice that the parentheses are around the 7 and the 8. Then the parentheses are around the 8 and the 9. So it would be choice D. Go ahead and try number 6. Which Venn diagram correctly compares integers, natural numbers, and whole numbers? As you get closer and closer to the center of the circle gets smaller because it includes less overall numbers. So it starts out big and gradually classifies it getting smaller and smaller of a group. So which one shows the biggest group out of those 3 to the smallest group in the correct order? So we have 3 different kinds of numbers here. We have natural numbers, whole numbers, and integers. Natural numbers, remember, are your counting numbers. They start with 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're your kindergarten numbers. Whole numbers include 0. Remember, the O in whole is 0. So it includes 0 and all of your natural numbers.
Jalen Jenkins to the main office.
Integers include negative numbers as well. So -1, -2, -3, -4, so on and so forth. But it also includes 0 and 1 and 2 and so on and so forth. So the biggest group out of these 3, the one that has the most numbers, are integers. Then the next group, we would get rid of the negative numbers, so we would have just whole numbers left. Then we'd get rid of the 0 and we would have just natural numbers. So natural numbers are your smallest out of the group. So the correct answer would be that one. Integers is your biggest group because they include all the negatives. Then we get rid of the negatives and we just have whole numbers. Then we get rid of the 0 and we just have natural numbers. You will have a question exactly like that on your quiz tomorrow. Take a look at number 7. In which set does the number -8 not belong? Which one does not include -8? -8 is not included in whole numbers because whole numbers start with 0 and keep on going. So -8, negative numbers are not in whole numbers. -8 is in real numbers, it is an integer, and it is a rational number. Question number 8, 5.6, notice that it has the repeating sign over it. 5.6 repeating is what kind of number? What kind of number is 5.6 repeating? .6 is a repeating decimal. Repeating decimals are included in rational numbers. Repeating decimals are included in rational numbers. Remember, irrational are your big, long, ugly decimals that don't repeat and don't end. Take a look at number 9. In number 9, what is the multiplicative inverse of 1/3? What is the multiplicative inverse of 1/3? Inverse is like reverse, which is like the opposite. So we're looking for the opposite of 1/3. The opposite of 1/3 is 3/1. But now notice that it's not listed there at all. 3/1 is not there. The more mature way to write a number when it's over 1 is to not write the 1 at all. So this would just be choice D. Number 10, which of the following words does not describe the number 0? Which one does not describe the number 0? Zero is not included in natural numbers because natural numbers start with 1 and they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They start with 1. So 0 is not included in natural numbers. Whole numbers start with 0. 0 is a rational number and 0 is a real number. Take a look at number 11. Now, this is the one that you might need a calculator for. Which equation can be solved only using only whole numbers? Which one can be solved using only whole numbers? So you have to try and solve them. Anytime that you have a non-whole number, you're going to cross that one out. There are two answers that you could get rid of right away, and hopefully you didn't waste your time trying to solve them, because if we're only using whole numbers, remember whole numbers start with 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, blah, blah, blah. Notice that we have a decimal here, so that wouldn't be the correct answer. We have a decimal here, so that wouldn't be the correct answer. Hopefully you didn't even try and solve those two. We have x squared equals 100. Now, be very careful. When the opposite of squaring a number is to take the square root of a number. The square root of 100 is plus or minus 10. Well, because it includes that -10, -10 is not a whole number. So D would not be the correct answer because you would have a -10 there as a possible answer. When you go to solve this one-step equation here, we would divide by 5, divide by 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. So the only numbers that we have here are 5, 5, and 25. All of those are whole numbers. Therefore, that would be your correct answer. Number 12, which is a rational number? Sorry, I told you probably didn't need a calculator. You definitely do to type that in. So which one is rational? Which one is rational? When you take a look at this one, pi is the most famous irrational number there is. So that's not right. Big, long, ugly decimals like these that you can't use the repeating sign on and that don't end are irrational. So this is an irrational number. This is an irrational number. This one terminates. It stops. Terminating decimals are rational numbers. So 0.5 is rational. In question number 13, which one is irrational? The most famous irrational number that there is pi. That is a Regents exam question every single year. What is it? Which number is irrational? Pi is irrational. All fractions are rational. Repeating decimals are rational. If we take the square root of 49, we get plus or minus 7. So we have integers. Integers are rational. The most famous irrational number is pi. And the last question, number 14. Which property was used going from step 1 to step 2? So all that we are looking at is this part of the problem. Don't get distracted by all the other stuff going on. We just want to know how we get from step 1 to step 2. Go ahead and try number 14, please. When you take a look at step 1 and step 2, the only things that are changing are right here. Everything else is the same. All that we're doing is switching around the order of things. We're switching around the order, so it has to be commutative property. And now you have to pick out which one it is. Is it addition or multiplication? Now, technically, there's not a plus sign there. That's okay. Adding a negative number is the same thing as subtracting a positive number. So whether it's adding or whether it's subtracting, we call it adding. It's definitely not multiplying because we're not multiplying 2x and negative 10. All right, so this is of addition. That is what your quiz looks like from questions 5 on. They will be multiple choice. All right, this should be a pretty easy quiz for most people.